It's a good test, though, if you're trying to get into a relationship. If the pants come off and like if they're ready to go despite Bob's face.
If the pants come off and they're like, let's watch Twin Peaks instead, I'm like, okay.
Welcome to Rewatchers on the pod. We're back with a podcast. Is that good enough for you, Tyler? We're so excited to be here and talk about... It's kind of a funny story. No, that's the name of the movie, and it was... well, I won't tell you because that comes next. But my name's Mitchell Marshall, here with...
Gwen Hammer.
Tyler McKinley.
Tyler Harris.
Justin Hammer.
And our special guest, Michelle.
Hi.
Michelle, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic.
Great. Well, before we figure out why you chose this movie, we're going to have Tyler give us a summary, and it's every detail. So don't think you even need to go back and watch the trailer, because he's got it all here for you.
Yeah.
This was written by Tyler, but Tyler's going to read it.
Yeah. Tyler Tag Team. Here we go. It's kind of a funny story. It started with a bridge. A boy decides a bike is the least effective way to cross the bridge. Jim Gaffigan and the Gilmore Girl question his suicide responsibilities, mainly the bike. Turns out it was all a dream. The boy attempts to check himself into the ER because he's suicidal, but instead is interrogated by a less than usually disheveled Zach Galifianakis. The boy is depressed for no dramatic reason. He also stress vomits. He also stress vomits corn really fucking far. The boy is obsessed with his best friend's girl. Craig is led by a mute Jason Mraz to the psych ward. They take his shoelaces. Turns out that Jason Mraz can talk and introduce him to Zach Galifianakis. Noel is a teen with scars. Zach turns out to be a patient. Craig meets a new roommate who wears beanies and night slippers. It's disgusting if we put fly noises over the footage. Gilmore mom is very supportive of Craig's new captivity. Craig sits with Johnny, Humble, and Zach, a.k.a. the men. Johnny has a rich backstory of getting some. There is a weird dystopian point system in the psych ward. More points for privileges, and you get 2 points for eating. Craig nervous vomits, so he has no points. MTV Cribs is still a thing. Craig meets with a therapist. New York is so elite that it has a clique. Each clique has its own school. That sounds like an anime. That's an anime. That's absolutely an anime. Zach will tangent into Candy hard. Zach's name is Bob now. Humble asks for Craig's burrito. Do you get 4 points for eating someone else's food? Craig gives it to him. Bob is mad about it. They have an intervention over the burrito freakout. Turns out Bob needs a shirt. Craig offers him Jim Gaffigan's shirt. Craig gets a note from Noel asking him to meet up at night. Bob has a daughter. Craig gives Bob the shirt for an interview. They role play how his interview will go. Craig meets Noel to play a game. Noel is probably suicidal because she has all those strict-ass rules in conversation and can't handle how insufferable she is. Craig moves fast, already touching Noel's face. That's like halfway to first base. An art class that you aren't allowed to draw a vagina is no art class. Craig is no good at art and ain't forgets his surroundings. Craig tells his friends to fuck off. Bob's family tells him to fuck off. Bob's interviews did not go well. Hasidic Jew rollerblading acid cult. Craig asks Bob about his daughter. He's told to back off. Craig goes to music class. He becomes Freddie Mercury and Bob becomes David Bowie. They play what I thought was going to be Ice Ice Baby, but there's a little bit of a bummer that it wasn't. But Under Pressure was still fun. Bob and Craig sneak out to play basketball. They talk about Noel and the concept of rejection. Bob is now Noel. Craig asks Noel out to a concert and compliments his shoes. Craig confronts Bob about why he's in there. Bob raped a penguin, allegedly. Good. Turns out Bob has tried to kill himself 6 times. Nia comes to visit Craig. Craig is super horny. They start making out in Matata's bed. He confronts them, then Craig throws up. Nia is freaked out. Craig confesses his love for Nia while Noel is right behind him. Nia and Noel both leave. Craig gives up all hope. Bob pep talks Craig. Craig tries to settle down for his second choice. Tried to settle for his second choice by quoting Bob Dylan. So obviously it works. Noel forgoes all reasonable judgment and accepts Craig's advances. Craig gets asked out by Noel. Craig gets a magic kiss on the cheek that helps him realize all his goals are shit. Craig gets everyone pizza. Bob doesn't want to join the pizza party. They lure Matata out with Egyptian record. Craig leaves the hospital and lives.
They really screwed you with Nia and Noel.
Yeah, man, that's
the love triangle.
A lot of names. Craig.
Craig. No one under 40 should be named Craig. So, Michelle, why did you choose this film?
Because I have to tell you guys, I really like. I listened to your podcast, and I was like so nervous because I'm just a nervous person.
Hey, me
and
too.
I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know what I'm gonna have to say. And this was the only question I was prepared to ask. And I was like, I hope they don't, or prepared to answer. And I was like, I hope nobody asks this at the very beginning, because then I'll have nothing else to say.
Well,
So,
okay, don't worry.
I chose this movie because I read the book when I was in high school, probably around the same age as the kid in the book, 16, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, it just really stuck with me. And so I like the movie a lot because I'm, I want to say busy, but mostly just a lazy person, and I don't read anymore. So I watch movies.
You fit in with most people on this podcast,
Great.
except for
Fabulous. I love that.
I have the exact opposite.
But so I went through like I was an angsty kid in high school, and I was like really sad all the time, so depressed, whatever.
What was your angsty music?
Great question. I've always listened to shit music, so I can't remember.
Okay, hey, no, I know what I listened to when I was being angsty. I was just curious, but
my thing is, I never
never
really
did it.
stopped.
yeah,
I'm like, the angst just turned to more aggressive anger at some point, and now I'm also just listening to very angsty stuff that I would have listened to.
now you're listening to like wrestling movie soundtracks, so that's pretty rough.
Yeah,
What's Jericho's
all of
band,
them.
whatever.
Oh,
that
no.
is.
Yeah. Oh, yep. I'm listening to Chris Jericho's band.
Which that song was stuck in my head for like
Yeah.
the rest of the week after that event.
Sometimes when I'm walking, I'm just like, I'm becoming.
So sorry, Michelle. Did you have anything else? Obvious, like everyone through angst, but like I was pretty depressed. It was actually a little after my teen years, so it wasn't like right in line with these. But was that like your main link? Was like this fun story within something that you felt like you could relate to, or what else was your connection there?
So it was that, and then the very end, and I'm kind of disappointed with how the movie like did it. It was kind of cheesy, but the very end of the book, they have like it's like a page and a half, and he's just like, run, bike, whatever. You guys remember that scene? And it's like, I don't know, it like was kind of a turning point for me. Yeah, I just was like, oh, this is good advice. Do these things. I don't know. Stop being depressed.
It
That's
feels
fake,
good.
but-
I kind of got mad during the movie when they were talking about like all those elitist students. And I was like, I hate that I even, not that I would have aspirations, but that like, not that life is easy, but that some people are just like, they have all this shit. They have all those qualifications when they're like 18, and you just know like opportunities that like that kid gets offered the Gates thing instead of having to apply for it. And I'm just like, oh, it frustrates me that I still envy that when I think like where the main character finds his happiness. I'm like, oh, that is something that I like have learned, but it's kind of hard to keep yourself grounded in that. I definitely wanted to ask about book to movie differences. So if there's any big ones, let us know. My biggest one was, did Bob kill himself in the book?
I actually can't remember. I wanted to like reread it or go through it, and I lost
I'll
it. I don't know
Wikipedia it.
where
Don't
it
worry.
is.
I was just
Wikipedia.
the way he went off at the end.
It did seem like
Yeah,
that.
because I love a hospital movie. I love a sick romance, like Fault in Our Stars. There was one called 5 Feet Apart out last year, and I was like, why do I enjoy this when I know someone's gonna die and I'm gonna cry and I'm gonna care about these 17-year-olds' love lives? And in this one, I was like, I don't think either of these people is gonna kill themselves. About 3/4 of the movie, I was pretty confident, and that made me feel good. And then at the end, I was like, damn it, someone's gonna die.
Yeah, it's very optimistic. It does make me sad that the author of the book actually killed himself a couple years after writing that. So he wrote it after getting out of staying in a facility like that, and then killed himself later. So it's kind of like, I don't know.
When was the movie made? When did the book come out, and then when did the movie come out? Was the movie made after the author died?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah.
That might just
That'd be good to know.
that would, knowing that going into it, probably would have changed the tone for me a little bit. Like if I had known that the author of the book where the story came from had killed himself before the movie came out, like that would have, I think, informed my viewing a little bit more.
Yeah. I think that would inform how you made that movie too. If
Yeah.
you like,
Yeah.
for sure. That's It's really interesting.
Yeah, it would have been a very huge tonal whiplash if someone were to have killed themselves in this movie, I feel like.
Yeah.
I thought it carried the it didn't take itself too seriously, and I mean that in a good way. I think this could have been a much more melodramatic movie, and maybe that is more fitting to some people's experience of anxiety and depression. But I thought it carried a good tone of like, this kid is coming to a little bit of a realization, but at the same time, that reality is that reality. And I like to tell that people about teenagers when we're kind of at this weird age where we are nowhere near having teenagers or being around them a significant amount of time. But it's been a long time since we were teenagers, and it's like all of that stuff is so real. And I thought this movie did a great job of like all of that stuff does seem so insanely important. Like, you can't expect kids to not find the young love and aspirations to be that critical. And so I thought that's how it provided the serious depth. But you're right, the tone did not serve a death, and that's how I kind of knew it, because it could have turned halfway through and made you feel like one of the main characters could die. And I did think that we were in good tonal hands, and I do want to talk about that with what's it, Between Two Ferns guy, Zach Galifianakis. Like, he was doing what Zach Galifianakis does.
That guy, yeah.
We've talked about him like 100 times, so you guys know I just could not find Alan from Hangover. It's so funny that it was so him, and I think this is maybe the best thing I've seen him do, other than full all-out comedy, a blend between he's really funny, but the character's just different enough.
Yeah.
I thought his tone set that tone where I didn't think someone was going to die, but it took the pain very seriously, and it was consistent.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, like, I saw this movie, like, forever ago, like 8 years ago, somewhere around there. And, like, it's interesting watching it now because, like, watching it this time, I totally feel that Bob's character has a lot of the emotional weight of the movie. Like, that scene where he comes in with the shirt wrapped around his head and then freaks out in the common room or whatever. Like, I felt that scene in a way I definitely did not feel it the first time I saw it, 8 years ago or whatever. And yeah, he's really good. I think for me at least, like those beats and those moments, like there's not a lot of it where you kind of see like the more painful side of Bob, but like seeing those like really hit me this time for some reason. But
yeah, he does a good job portraying that, because whenever I don't know how much time I know you spent a lot of time around special needs kids, Tyler, because you worked at a school there. And when you're just people with mental illnesses, they'll do things that, like, your initial gut reaction is to, like, laugh,
Yeah.
But then you're not sure if it's a playful thing or if it becomes something a lot more dark. And so I think he pulls off that really well. I think that especially in that moment you talked about, that it's very, it's comical with the shirt coming in on his head, and then it turns into something a little more close to home, and it's a little bit hard to deal with. I think the tone of this movie is weird for me. I am all for it being a fun thing, but I think people could criticize it for its oversimplicity in representing mental illness, and just kind of the quote-unquote cure for that.
Have like the one line at the end, but it felt like lip service.
Yeah, like I have depression and anxiety, and it's not something like I'm offended by when people approach it this way. Mm-hmm. It's just interesting the thought process behind it. Whereas something like we talked about a couple weeks ago, the Babadook was a lot more accurate in representing something like that, where it's not something that there's a one-off fix for. It's something that you constantly live with. That you're and I mean he does mention it, like you said at the end, Glenn, that he does say, I'm not cured. This isn't over. Like, this is just the beginning of me figuring things out. But that wasn't what I felt like the message throughout the whole thing that was being delivered to me the whole time.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was the conclusion. I didn't feel that conclusion happening, I guess.
Yeah.
I think the only positive to that simplicity for me, and everyone approaches these situations and completely differently, is it's probably aimed at a younger audience. But I'm wondering if, do you think if you would have seen this as a 15-year-old, it would be a positive or a perspective, or if it, like, that's the only advantage of not just the levity, but the simplicity, because I did think that I thought this could go a lot more ways. It could describe in a better way some of these, or help us kind of understand some of these individuals better. But like, I don't have a bearing on that. Do you feel like that would be a net positive for a younger person to read this book? Because I have some books that I'm thinking of that are equivalent. The author of Silver Linings Playbook actually wrote a book, and I'm going to have to look up the name, but it's a very similar situation, but much more dark. And so I'm kind of contrasting those in my mind. Do you think it would have been more positive or negative to read as
I think it just depends on the person. Like I said, I don't think it's a bad thing
Yeah.
to have this tone. And in fact, I had fun with it. It's just, it's very much person to person. Like Michelle said, that it's something that influenced her when she was reading the book, and I don't know all the differences between the film and the book. But it's just, there's some people who are in a mental place where they're very, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. It's very much like, oh, I'm being told that if I go outside, I'm going to cure my depression type of thing. And when that doesn't work,
Right.
that's going to hit them hard. Whereas if you got a good enough head on your shoulders to understand that that's a good thing to help people, like I do believe that can be helpful. I believe that, when you have a mental illness, that sheltering yourself and laying in bed all day, like it shows, which is a thing that a lot of people end up choosing to do. So that's a good representation in this movie of that. But I don't think that's a good thing. I think it's good to try and experience things and find the things that help you cope with everything. And so it just, I don't know, I think it's dependent on the person. And I think that, it could definitely benefit someone who is in the right headspace for it.
Yeah.
I think I would have liked it if they would have leaned a little harder into, was it Bobby? Was that his name? His ending. It was sort of ambiguous, which I thought was good. I just felt like the touch was a little bit light on that. Like for Craig, after the hospital, it was a positive turn. We had the line, yes, I still had to work at it and solve these problems. But I felt like if they leaned a little bit harder into Bobby's, like, everything's not necessarily solved once you get out of the hospital, that would have strengthened the end for me.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting. This is like an interesting movie to talk about this too, because it is so old in that regard. I feel like over the last decade, these questions have been explored so much more deeply. We do have stuff where, like, even, you mentioned a book written by the guy who writes Silver Linings Playbook, but even the movie Silver Linings Playbook, the way it deals with some of those things and presents some of those things feels a little more grounded and, like, maybe more like showing some of the darker moments of that. But I do think that this movie, I think that the core idea at the center of it that I like as a takeaway, and with the idea that it may be created for younger audiences, is the idea that, like, talk to someone. Like, these aren't things that you should be embarrassed by. These aren't things that you are alone in. These are things that you need to find some people to talk to. And even that is an oversimplification. That's still a hard thing to do, is to find the right people to talk to and all of that. But I do think that, especially for the time this movie came out, I mean, I don't know how much I thought about that 10 years ago or whatever, you know what I mean? And so yeah, it is interesting. I think that simplicity serves this as a specific thing. But yeah, in the broader sense of, like, mental health, there's, like, so much, and that's the important thing, is there's, like, it's literally different for everybody, and every experience is different. So
one thing that I really did appreciate about the entirety of the tone is the idea that life can be okay and things can be okay even when you're in the throes of an illness, especially a mental illness. Like, obviously not everything is sunshine and daisies, but it can be okay at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a possibility.
Yeah. And the flip side of that is that even when not everything is bad, you might still feel like you want to kill yourself, like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that.
Craig, everyone kept telling him, like, you're so cool, you have a cool life.
Yeah.
Like, would you say that to a kid with cancer? Like,
right, yeah.
That doesn't fix the physical thing that is wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
That's part of the reason I like it so much. I think it, like you were saying, like, it's older, and a lot of this stuff wasn't talked about, but I think it helped kind of open the door and, kind of get rid of that stigma of mental illness and like getting help for it and treating it as an illness rather than I don't know. I'm blanking here.
Something
A
wrong with you
phase.
as a person.
Yeah.
Phase,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
I just looked it up real quick just to see in the book was written or released in 2006, movie in 2010, author killed himself in 2013. So back. Nick Vizzini, just shout out. He does have a couple other books. So and like Justin was saying, that does affect the way you look back on the movie, because someone who maybe found this optimism in this characterization, or even if it wasn't an optimism and there's so much realism to it, I think that helps you know that when you're in that depth of emotion, that is there's not always a happy ending.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting way to look back at it, and it's important. I want to shift gears just to, I think there are a lot of rich characters, and I don't know if there's enough time for all of them. Some of them just get some funny stuff. Sometimes I wonder if people watch this and are like, I wonder what that person has, and it's kind of a hodgepodge in this hospital world. But I think through creative license, that's fine. I want to start with the parents, because I actually, when I went through like the worst time in my life and I probably needed some mental health help, my parents didn't really know what to do. And I never questioned my parents' love, never felt shamed by them for being in the position I was, but they were a little bit frozen. And so his dad, I kind of wanted is it Jim Gaffigan?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I get him confused with Brian Regan, sorry. I kind of want him to go full asshole or be like even more aloof, but like I think his lack of sight is pretty accurate. You talk about how this conversation has grown just in the 10 years since this movie came out. That's a lot, because so many parents had no idea how to approach as more kids had to deal with this. And Lorelai, don't care for the mother's real name.
Lauren Graham, for those of you that do.
She's great in Parenthood. And she's in some new musical show, because I watch everything that comes out now. But like, it was enough. Like I kind of, apparently I was reading some book and movie differences. The dad is a little bit more anti-art, but other than that, it seems pretty accurate. But it was something I could really relate to. But on any front, I just want to go and see what side characters you guys enjoyed. And I think anyone but Craig is free game. So even if it's Emma Roberts or Zach Galifianakis, I just want to know like where those fall for you, because so many of them provided good moments and laughs, and I want to give them their due. Michelle, is there one that stuck out for you?
I don't know. The psychiatrist, I'm blanking on her name.
Violet
Davis.
Viola Davis.
Yeah.
She's incredible.
I don't know. It was kind of like I've seen a couple different like therapists and psychiatrists in my life, and like you really get to find out like who what type of personalities work well with you, like who you can talk to and who make it harder. And just like relating it to my own experience, I was like, whoa, this would suck. I don't know what it was, but I was like, I don't like her, like I would not talk to her.
It feels very clinical, like in a like yeah, no, I got that same feeling of like being in that. I was like,
because like I can see the other side too.
Yeah.
Like she could be great, but for me personally, my personality, I'm like,
yeah.
I felt that way in their first session, and then in the latter ones, I felt like it was a little better. It was, but at first, she felt a lot more cold and non-caring. I don't know if that was the intent of the film.
Well, and also there's the
was in
line where she's like, "What are your parents?" I wouldn't be a psychiatrist if I didn't ask that. And that felt like the moment where she was turning the chair around to sit on it backwards to be you know what I mean? I was
Turned
like,
her hat
"Fuck
around."
You. Yeah.
But I think also it went with going back to tonality a little bit. The beginning of the movie is really like awkward kind of, and like quiet and like super serious, and you're like I was looking around at all you guys and I was like, they're judging me, they hate this movie. Like Tyler's so embarrassed that he asked me to come. But then towards the end, like it starts playing music.
Oh, you thought that changed?
Holy
Would you be
shit.
nice?
No, you're good, Michelle. Sorry.
No, it's fine. But she also changed with that, and I was thinking about it actually just now when we were watching it, like how much of that has to do with Craig's perspective of what's going on. Like at first he's really scared, he's really nervous, and like as you see him kind of try new things and learn new things. Like, he's more comfortable, and the movie's more comfortable, and she got more I don't know. That's
Kind of a
something
more
I,
subtle
just
development.
noticed. I haven't
Yeah.
really thought about it, but
Yeah.
I think that's so right in that approach and those resources are so thin. Like, I've had family and friends, and whether you try and do it through your health insurance or your educational institution, it's so hard to find someone, even, whether you have the money or not, that, well, I guess money's the end all be all. I feel like everyone in Hollywood's doing therapy, and they're like, therapy is great, everyone should do it. Mental health should be part of your regular life, and most people can't afford it. It's so expensive. And so to think like he wanted, like, that was his only option, and I think they had to simplify it for a book or a movie, but I could absolutely see that. And she's a great actress, but she only had this separate time to build this, and we're doing that while Craig is also kind of being treated like we kind of know. And I'm not downplaying his depression, but I felt like the movie sometimes treated him like, you're not really as bad as the rest of these people. We're just going to let you learn a lesson. I got to say, firstly, when he went in, I was like, man, what's the copay going to be on this? That's how you know I'm an old-ass adult. I'm like, don't.
Seriously.
I'd be like,
Walking into the ER is automatically hitting your deductible. Like,
I never do
Yeah.
that.
I can't. I was like, oh, I'm not allowed to be depressed because I don't want to die, but to prevent dying, I'd have to spend all this money, which would just make me more stressed and depressed. Oh, man.
Welcome to America.
Man, so much has changed over the last 10 years.
Gwen, did you have a specific character you wanted to spotlight?
Lorelai, the mom, when she first got to the hospital and was talking to Craig, I was like, oh fuck, she's me. Like, I would not know how to deal with this situation. Like, she's obviously trying really hard, but she just has no clue. And I'm so worried about situations, like, not necessarily with mental health, just things that I don't know how to deal with my kids, and trying and failing. And that was the moment that stuck out to me, I guess.
Yeah, no, I get that. That was like, especially that scene where she's like, when they come in when he's first in the hospital, is so, it's like that moment where it's like you don't know what to say, so it's stuff that's generic enough that it feels safe enough that it's not gonna affect anything.
Let's listen to the doctors. We
Yeah.
should, we've tried.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Yeah, that whole dynamic is really fascinating. Like, we've talked about the parents a bunch already, but that's
do you guys all have
really interesting.
kids?
I do not.
Yeah. They are married. They have a kid. I have a kid.
Yeah.
We don't. Yeah.
Yeah, we're married, but we don't.
We don't. Yeah. We're still trying to get. It's expensive.
Yeah.
We
I want to skip the toddler phase. Mitchell's all into it, so
I'm about nurture over nature. So like I need them from the womb. I mean,
I'm so glad we're not actually
how soon
married.
do you get them after you like? Can you like if you adopt a baby that you know is about to be born? Do you get them like 10 days?
I was 3 days.
Were you? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's plenty of time. That no one can indoctrinate a baby in 3 days.
Well, I'm gonna try.
We can't have this conversation. This
Okay.
relationship.
At least I think it was. I don't remember. I've heard.
That's what you've been told.
I've heard multiple different things too. So from my understanding, it was anywhere between a day and 3 days. So yeah, it could be easy.
I know adoptive parents who were there when the children were born.
I do too. I just didn't know if like they can take them or if there's like a process.
I had to spend at least 24 hours.
There
in
is
the
a
hospital, I
process,
remember.
Mitchell. I'll say that there is a process.
Walk into a hospital and I would like this one.
Could I see that one in the third row, please?
Shopping should
That's
be
not
that
it.
easy. I don't know.
I don't know if the laws are still the same, but you have like. I love how we're talking about this.
I know.
I don't know if the laws are still the same, but there's a grace period essentially of like if the mother changes her mind because
She has
of
that.
attachment issues. So it's like I don't know how long that is, but what I'm saying, Mitchell, is you could probably camp out at a hospital and sneak in at the right moment. And,
I actually hang up by fire stations.
Oh my god! So this conversation is so much darker than this movie was. I feel like.
Tyler, did you have a side character you wanted to, or a non-main character you wanted to?
I'm deciding which
talk
one. There's
about a
two of
little
them. Because I know we're going to talk about one no matter what. So maybe I'll go with the other one. Is it? I don't remember how to pronounce it. Mutada? Is it Mutada? Yeah. Just because of his situation that I have. There's a couple people I've met who have done the same thing as he has, and there's one in particular that I think of that I had a lot of interaction with, and who had convinced himself that he was paralyzed, but he was not, because he got rejected by a girl he was in love with, and decided to spend the rest of his life in a bed. And yeah, I went over there and it was like really gross. Like, he had not left it ever, and he was living with his mother, and his mother was like, I am done with this shit. And that was like a really hard thing to watch, really, but also like in a completely non-empathetical way, I guess, like fascinating in a gross, weird way, I guess. Which the way Mutada like is represented here is not quite as extreme, but it's really interesting of what the different mental illnesses can do and how his character is kind of lured out with Egyptian music bait.
The most tantalizing of baits.
And I do like how that it was very, very brief. They didn't really go into his character too much. I kind of enjoyed that, I guess, how it's kind of left as, hey, he got out of bed once or twice, he's probably still there and probably has bad days still and sits in there. But
I like that one of the things we learn about Mutada is that he uses the phrase "make sex," which I also am going to use now. Yeah, it tells you a lot about his character without, telling you too much. I feel like.
And finding someone else, your roommate having sex on your bed is pretty. I appreciate that about him. That I empathize most with that moment.
Good boundaries.
Can I?
Are you going to talk about the time?
I was going to ask because you guys were roommates.
I was literally going to ask if it was. I was going to say, Justin, can you earmark this moment? Can I tell the story?
Yes.
It's not a make sex story.
Oh, I'm trying to remember if it's the time I'm thinking of. If it's not the time I'm thinking about, I'm really concerned of what it is.
Well, if there's a time you made sex in my bed, then I don't know that story, so I am also concerned.
Does this story involve your bed?
Yes, it does.
And does it involve, was it when we were roommates at Wolverine Crossing?
Yes,
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
It was just, I just want to contrast, I just want to express, like, the lack of knowledge of what to do I had when I came home one day and went to, so me and Tyler were roommates, we shared a room, and I got home from work or something, I went back to our room, and him and Katie, his now wife, were sitting on my bed. They were the only ones that, but they were sitting on my bed, and I was like, I don't know what to do in this situation, and I'm pretty sure I stopped in the doorway for a second, and then set my bag down at the foot of my bed and left again because I did not know what to do.
I felt really bad about that because what was happening was I had all my movies in a big Tupperware thing underneath my bed,
right?
And our beds were pretty that room was pretty skinny.
Yeah, it was a small room, yeah.
And so I couldn't sit on my bed and pull them out comfortably, so I just sat on your, and Katie and I had just barely started hanging out even really. Yeah. We weren't even dating, and so but she had never been in that. She didn't know that my bed was the one that had the Return of the Jedi sheets,
which tells you they hadn't hung out that much yet.
And she thought it was yours, and we're so we're sitting on your bed, and she thinks that's my bed. Or going through these movies, and you came in, and I didn't know how to handle that situation.
Yeah. We're the two least. We're the worst people to have in that situation because literally nothing's gonna change. We're just gonna recognize the situation and then hope it's different at some point.
I wish you would have just crawled into his bed.
Just here to take a nap in my bed.
You guys should watch out. Empire Strikes Back.
Anyways, yeah, so I can't imagine.
Remind me to tell you another story of that same dynamic of us just not talking about it after the podcast is over.
Oh shit, is there a worse one?
I'll just tell now. We can always cut it out.
Fuck. Why did we start this podcast?
It wasn't as bad as that. It wasn't.
Okay.
It's kind of just the same vein of us in an awkward situation.
Yeah.
I just used his Netflix account when we lived with each other, and all of a sudden, on the recently watched things on Netflix, it was just this sleaziest porno movies and stuff. I was I guess that's what he's watching now, and I didn't mention it. He saw them and thought it was me using his, and we were we didn't talk about it until one point way down the road, and finally I was hey, because we were sitting down watching a movie, I think those came up. I was so how's that movie? He's I thought that was you.
Why don't you tell me?
So we were like, wait,
are
if
like
it's
a
not
sitcom.
you, then it's not me. Who is doing this? And we had to like, when did we find out? It was a while
It
later.
was a while, yeah.
And it ended up being one of his little brother's friends who got the account password.
I was gonna blame Josh right on the spot.
Oh man, yeah, that was I had totally forgotten about that story. Man, we should just do a podcast about the time we lived together at that apartment because that was a strange cast of characters.
Tyler and Tyler,
Much
the
like
roomies.
this movie's strange.
Speaking
cast
of character, yeah, who was your character,
It's kind of
Tyler?
another funny story.
I'm going to tell you about the character that everyone wants to talk about, which is Humble. The man who's, I think, probably, I'm going to just ballpark, probably 37% of his lines had the word beaver in them. And they're used as like a big joke that's paid off 2/3 of the way through the movie. In a pretty good moment.
I love when the art teacher's like, I thought you meant vagina. I was like, yeah, thanks for not keeping it subtle. I like it.
No, but I mean, I feel like I already talked about, like, I definitely for me this time around, like, Bob was the one that I connected with, and kind of, I feel like that arc resonated with me in a really, like, sad way, that it definitely didn't 8 years ago when I watched this, and, like I said, even just the two moments for me is the moment with the shirt when he comes with it wrapped around his head, and then also the scene that you don't really hear. I mean, I think you can hear some of it, but like that scene with his wife and daughter is so. It's really raw in a movie where we don't necessarily get a ton of that, like those really raw moments, and man, that's rough. Like I was like. I don't remember, but I hope we don't have to see him walk out in the hallway and walk past this kid. And then you do, and I was like, oh, it's the worst part of this scene is like the moment outside of that where you have to be fine again. And like, I don't know, it's really, I think that's really great. And like Mitchell mentioned, like that's a really great Zach Galifianakis performance. Yeah. I think also, I don't know if anyone here has watched Baskets, his show on FX. Super weird, but he gets a lot of those moments in that too, and he's great. I really like him, but I really enjoy that character. I think it's done really well. So,
And I think that tonal shift or dip, as it were, is handled pretty well and makes a lot of sense, and you can see why it resonates with Craig. And there are just so many unsaid things that you want to know and that you want to feel about him and his lack of control and his relationship with his daughter and everything. And so, yeah, he's a character that, like we talked about the therapist, there's only so much you can see. Mm-hmm. I mean, Zach Galifianakis probably gets 2 to 3 times the screen time, and he creates so much with it. And I think that's critical. And I did read a summary. I don't think he does die at the end, but like that is what kind of felt like with that last lingering moment. But I think it is important to have some non-happy endings, with the outside stuff and the pizza, and everything. It's a good mixture, but that was painfully layered in emotion, and I thought the movie earned it, which is rare. I don't know how I didn't hear about this movie. I'm all about this. Is like, it's not quite it's kind of a coming of age movie in a way, but like right in my wheelhouse. Justin, did you have anyone you want to spotlight before we move on?
Not individual spotlight. I just was thinking the cast of teenagers that were in this movie, I thought did a pretty good job for the most part. Like the main character, I can't remember his name. I'm horrible with it. Craig. Yeah, cool
is
Craig,
the
right?
character's name. I thought you were looking for the actor. I was like, no idea.
No.
Craig's crazy quack talks.
I thought he did a really great job. It's Zoe Kravitz in there too. As
That's how I knew how old this
shocking.
movie was. I thought this was a much more current movie.
Yeah.
I saw how young Zoe Kravitz
yeah,
was.
that's how
I was
you
like,
can
"Oh,
tell like when a movie came out is you look at the rings on Zoe Kravitz and you know like what
Chop
Zoe
her in
Kravitz
half,
are at.
look at her rings.
Yeah.
just the high school kids in there. It's strange because this movie came out a couple years after we graduated from high school, and but it kind of like took me back to like the way people looked and things, like obviously because the movie came out in 2010, so obviously it looks the way that it looked then, but it was kind of strange to just kind of be thrown back into that because I didn't know anything about this movie going into it, and so to get thrown back into high school all of a sudden with the high school age actors in this movie, it was kind of a trip.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did a good job.
That kid, the best friend douchebag, again, like there's only so much for that character, but that's real. Like the kid who has this weird sort of perfection and can't quite identify with his peers, and there's just this. It's tough when that is your best friend and there's not that much emotional communication, which you don't expect from a 17-year-old. But to observe it from here, I thought he did a good job. I wanted to punch him in the dick. And like 21 Jump Street, how they kind of have to be like the cool kids aren't the jocks anymore. It's now like the smart, funny kids. Or in Booksmart, how they're like even the stoners are getting into Yale. It's funny. This movie is very early on being like this kid is what everyone wants to be, even though he's. The early 2000s stereotype to this, it moves on very quickly. And yeah, I thought the teenagers did a good job. I forget that, like, Emma Roberts can act because I feel like she does some weird or dumb things, but I think she's generally a pretty interesting person to watch. And it's funny that nobody mentioned her because she's a fairly primary
my other
character.
one I was going to mention.
Oh, okay. Oh. Yeah, and I was like, I don't know if she's low-hanging fruit or if we didn't quite get enough, but I actually thought the mystery behind some of her pain is... It's a story that didn't quite need to be told because I think it would make the relationship different. There certainly could have been a lot more romantic turmoil. Like the big turn is her finding out that him saying he's in love with this other girl, and I think she was underserved in that way, where she kind of just served as like this very sweet love interest. But I also like that she wasn't used to show him the light. Like he had to figure that out on his own, and he's actually hopefully going to help her heal. And then I just love their cutesy romance, and I thought they did a good job with it.
Sure. Yeah, I like how I kind of like the beginning part of her introduction and relationship with him. I mean, like in my summary, I wasn't thinking her as a person. And if I ever met this person, I'd be like, yeah, all right, fuck off. But
you want me to end every sentence with a question? God,
are you out of your mind?
But I am.
This is why I'm not ready for kids.
I think you guys need to work that out. Yeah.
Oh, now we have to wait another 10 years. It's one thing after another.
I'm pretty bummed about her character in general, to be honest, though. I feel like she's just kind of there to be the female lead.
Yeah.
Like especially since like Craig is an asshole. Like where this goes with Craig, and this is what pisses me off about. This is the only thing that like I am like a little offended by like it's how it conveys depression and mental illness. Is I know so many people who use their mental illness as kind of like a weapon or like an excuse and like that pisses me off because I try so hard not to do that, not to make it a burden on people. And yeah, he just like immediately is just like, well, there's two girls I'm thinking about. I really want to have sex, and it doesn't really matter which one. Yeah. And then when one fails, I'm like, Bob Dylan quotes, and
walking.
It's like such a teenage boy thing, though. Like it rings so true.
I thought
that's offensive. I was not like that at all.
I think his immaturity is
do need to do a podcast about a lot of stories because man, I'm just thinking of so many funny stories.
Honestly, Tyler and I's best podcast about Laguna Beach was when he went through old Facebook messages with his high school girlfriend.
Damn it! Yeah.
Oh, I totally forgot you guys did that on the mic.
Yeah, that was fun.
That's awkward. But yeah, no, it was just very much like I had a hard time empathizing with Craig at that point. I mean, there are moments throughout the movie where he had some moments that was hard for me to be like, I like you, Craig, because I don't.
But I think isn't that true of a teenage boy? They're just annoying and stupid.
Well, no, yeah, the rest of that I can excuse, but like that kind
just
of turned in is like, in my opinion, it's a bad writing because that's a bad character.
It makes it hard to root for him. That way in the movie.
But
I get it,
and it's right there at the end. I feel like I think the stronger narrative decision is to have them not get together at the end, and him learning to deal with responsibility of his choices and dealing with that. Just because you're a good guy in other areas, it doesn't mean necessarily that you're a good guy in all areas and that you have things you can work on. He is kind of comes off as like the perfect person at the end. At least they try to present him as that.
They also make him look like a total idiot though because he doesn't know Bob Dylan.
Yeah, that's true.
Know Bob Dylan.
I would have had no idea, so sorry.
And he barfs all over the place. Too, like,
I actually love the projectile vomit.
That's one of my favorite things in this movie.
Yeah,
projectile vomiting is like that's
That's your kids falling off of bikes.
Man, you need to see Knives Out also.
I thought we should have seen. I think it would have earned them. First of all, I'm a sappy romantic, so I wanted to be together. But I thought it would have earned it if he would have realized that Nia, who is also needing therapy, is her name Nia? Did I screw that up?
No, it's Nia.
She almost like fetishized his sadness and his tragedy. It was like how he found out on the phone, everyone's like, you're a rock star. Everyone's talking about you because you're in a mental hospital. Like, that's so interesting. And the fact that she wanted to exploit that or like be part of that as part of her narrative, that made me feel really uncomfortable. And then his friend not getting pissed that he tried to make out with his girlfriend or girlfriend who had broken up with him like hours earlier. That's not realistic. You kick that kid in the dick.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Got a lot of dick violence going on there, Mitchell.
It's the best way to hurt a man.
I don't know if I can agree with that, but I also don't want to drag this podcast into darker corners.
I was going to say, it's the easiest way quickly. Otherwise, you have to get him emotionally invested and then rip out his soul. Or marry him and then ruin it.
No big deal.
Oh,
I'll take it. Okay. Last thing I wanted to bring up is there's some moments where we have montages or just like they sing under pressure. I just wonder, did that take you guys out of it? Did you enjoy it? Because like I enjoyed it. I can't quite decide if it fits or not. But when it took us into surreal moments out of the real world, was that a positive in the filmmaking or a negative for you guys?
So I'll say, I just want to talk about the under pressure scene real quick. Better than Bohemian Rhapsody. Better than that entire movie. I enjoyed myself more in that 3 minutes than I did in 2 hours.
I liked all the mental patients making up the band. That was fun.
Yeah,
the beard and hair on Zach.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
When that happened, I was like, yeah.
Glitter that
worth
man's
it.
beard.
Yeah. You should glitter your beard, Justin.
I'm not doing it.
I can't blame you.
Well, it's hard to
Glitter
do on
is
yourself. Someone
literally
else
the
will
worst
do.
thing on the planet.
I bet May will do it. May would
She
love
won't
to
do it either. I will not let her. No glitter will get into my beard.
Oh, challenge accepted.
This is why I have to get sparkly Christmas decorations.
What if
just
that's what
in
she
the
wants for
hope
her
that it'll
quinceañera?
sort of, get in there.
Just
What?
the proximity.
Dude, nothing worsened the celebration of the birth of the Lord and Savior like glittery Christmas ornaments and having glitter all over my goddamn house.
I will so
Amen.
fight you on that.
No.
I'm going to agree with you on that
Like,
one.
I want a sparkly
These
goddamn
microplastics
cross.
that are going to be inside of my gut, poisoning me and giving me cancer for the rest of my life.
Well, that just comes from the shrimp.
I mean, that's happening already.
the Christmas
I mean,
shrimp.
now that we're not getting the Chinese plastics, the quality's only going to go down. All right.
Oh, man, yeah. So that Queen part was good. Yeah, I think I honestly I liked the times that they went further with that. I liked it more than the like voiceover over stills, which they use a couple times. But like the kind of like shot of going through the drawn city. I liked, and also reminded me that the XX is a band that I should listen to. Also, does Emma Roberts' character call them 2X in this movie?
I couldn't tell what she
she
was
really?
talking about.
Because she's like,
man.
I like Radiohead, I like the Pixies, like 2X, and I was like,
No, T-Rex.
oh, did
She
you say
said T-
T-Rex?
oh, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
because she said, because I was thinking of the XX because I heard that song earlier, and then I thought I heard her say 2X, and I thought for a moment I had like Googled it, and I was like, is she into Chilean rap metal? Because there's a band called 2X. Anyways,
Which is a
okay.
funny tie-in to Baby Driver because he mispronounces T-Rex as Trex.
Yes,
And,
thank
yeah.
you. Yes, yeah, great.
Anyway,
I
useless.
like how she lands on Vampire Weekend, who I like, but it's funny that they're the go-to, we're going to name an indie band, but now they're too popular for it?
Well, especially 2010 though. 2010 Vampire Weekend. I think that's still pre-Contra. So that's one album out.
okay, you're right,
Like
you're right.
they are dropping out of college and fucking tearing shit up, and they're the cool band. Nowadays, I don't think you'd have cool kids in high school being like, Vampire Weekends for fucking cool. They'd be like, Post Malone's
That's how
so
teenagers talk
fucking
now.
cool.
Oh man, did I watch a Mark Wahlberg movie where Post Malone plays a gangster? Teasing recommendations. Okay. Anything else you guys wanted to cover with this movie? Any final thoughts? Wow, we covered it. I think
Resounding, though.
large,
Covered the
great
shit out
array
of
of
it.
characters. I think we did good to like the fact that it's more serious subject matter, but it was fun.
I like that we're having the
We're
conversation about
recapping
whether
it.
this episode was good in the
Did we-
midst of
I
a
think we-
review.
8 out of 10. Yeah.
The tangents were a 10 out of 10. You just had to get around them. All right. We'll, Tyler, why don't you tell us how people can reach us on social media, what they can look forward to next week, then we'll take a little break and come back with recommendations.
Yeah, I actually, you can go ahead and email us at rewatchersonthepod@gmail.com, like one anonymous user did.
Was it really someone anonymous?
No, it was. I know exactly who it is, but they sent us this email with the subject line: "Serious question. Be ready. When are you bastards going to watch Die Hard? Seriously, this shouldn't even be a thing. Watch one of the best movies of all time and then record yourselves talking about how influential and amazing it is. Do it, you bastards."
I can imagine the word bastard coming out of someone's mouth here. All right.
So, so if you have any helpful advice on how to make the show from an 8 out of a 10 to a 10 out of 10, let us know.
You know who loves Die Hard is Taylor Camp. We should have him on.
Oh.
And as soon as he comes
I can't.
we will do a Die Hard episode. All right, keep going, Tyler. Sorry.
Anyways, so teasing a future Die Hard episode, probably. And if you want to follow us on Twitter or Instagram, you can do that at RewatchersPod. Also, next week, we will have our special guest on, Trevor Robertson, and we'll be watching the... How do I describe this? Classic Kung Fu Hustle?
Oh.
Yeah, it's going to be a ride.
I've never seen this movie.
Do you know what it is?
I don't. I'm going to go into
Don't watch anything
Yeah.
about
I
it.
know
Have you seen
it's
it,
not
right, Justin?
Most of it, yeah.
Wait,
Okay.
is this the YouTube one?
YouTube? No, you're thinking of Kung Fury? Was that the...
Oh, yes,
okay.
Kung Fury.
No, it's
yeah,
not
that's,
that. It's
that
not
was,
that.
Yeah, very different.
This is the sequel to Kung Fu Panda, right? It's Kung Fu Panda 4.
Yes, yeah. It's where they have to learn the hustle. And
This is the
just go through their
Hustlers Kung
lives.
Fu Panda merging sequel. So it's J-Lo and Jack Black stripping and hustle. Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
exactly.
I digress.
Be ready for that. That's our
Cool.
next episode.
We're going to take a quick little breaky break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Rewatchers on the Pod. We're going to go around and give you some fantastic recommendations for stuff you can watch this week. Justin, do you want to kick us off?
Oh, yeah. Put me on the spot. I had
If you want to bring up your notes, we will skip you.
Come back to me.
Tyler.
I do have
That
stuff.
sounded
Come
like
back.
a threat. If you want to bring up your notes, we will skip
It
it.
wasn't meant to be, and by the end I was like, ooh, you sounded like where would that tone come from, Mitchell? Dang.
I can talk about something. I watched a new show that just started this week on FX called Dave.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Devs, but Dave is
No,
also
I've
awesome.
heard great things about
Love
Devs.
Lil Dicky.
It's a Little Dicky show. It's just Little Dicky making a TV show. If you're not familiar with Little Dicky, go look up. I always want to recommend Pillow Talking first, but that's a real dive into the deep end.
His whole album, what's it called?
Professional Rapper.
Professional Rapper.
Yeah.
And if you watch the music videos that accompany them, and know that almost everything he is saying in these raps is very true.
Yeah,
And he can rap.
Yeah, he's a very good rapper, and also all of his songs are really hilarious.
Yeah.
Probably his song "Professional Rapper" features Snoop Dogg, where he goes to Snoop Dogg's offices to interview for a job as a professional rapper, and it's really great. But yeah, he has a show, and it's not bad. I
think
kind
it's
of
really
expected
good.
it to be bad, but it's really fun. It's kind of in the vein of like. The show I immediately thought of was Crashing, which you watched Crashing, the Pete Holmes show. Mm-hmm. It's very autobiographical, at least it seems to be, and it also features just him rapping real good.
Yeah.
It's a really fun show.
And you don't have to like rap. It's hilarious, and there's a lot of real rappers in it. It is very interesting.
Yeah.
And by the way, all the medical penis stuff is true. He did an interview just to say that over the first 3 episodes, there's a lot of penis talk, and he just wants you to know it's true. So I wanted you to know it's true too.
Good to know.
What would we do?
So yeah,
without
that's
you?
my recommendation. Go watch
I
Lil
did-
Dicky talk about
Will you
his
say
real
something
life
else?
penis
I need to shut up. I just really like
No, but that's I think that's actually it for me.
That's all the time you had around wrestling.
This all the time. I'm gearing
I don't
up
mean
to
that as a
go see
criticism.
wrestling
I just
next
am like,
week.
man,
Yeah.
that might be time consuming right now.
Okay. No, actually, we'll recommend this as well. I finished Mick Foley's book, which I cannot praise highly enough. Wonderful book about if you're interested in professional wrestling at all. And I just read a book called Alliance Tale, which is Chris Jericho's book. And this is another book that is very highly recommended by everyone who's involved in wrestling, because it's just about it's a very non-traditional way to get into the WWE, at least at the time that Chris Jericho was doing it. He was a kid from Canada that just did a bunch of shows in Mexico and then moved to Japan and then came back and worked in the WCW. But it's really fascinating, and it really, it's just really good. So Chris Jericho's book's really great. You guys have all watched him wrestle now, so yeah, it's a good time to read
I
his
know
book.
these names now.
Yeah,
I know who they are.
there they are. So, but yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk about wrestling a lot more in recommendations next week because me and Mitchell are going to see AEW Revolution, or not Revolution, but AEW Dynamite, and I'm very excited. That's all.
I'm ready for my heart to pound. Michelle, can you recommend to us?
Okay. Tyler's laughing.
Oh, great.
I really, really, genuinely did want to do something like Tinkerbell and just make you guys watch that and, like, fall in love with a stupid little Disney movie and be like me.
Open our eyes.
I would have had a good
Are they on
time.
Disney
I don't
Plus?
know about these guys, but I would have liked it.
I think it's on Netflix for sure.
When
I'm
was
not
this
sure if they're on
Tinkerbell
Disney
movie
Plus.
made?
Excellent question.
Who's the
I have
director?
no concept of time or film.
Who is the
or
lead
anything
animator?
important.
Now,
I don't
remind me the full title of this film. Tinkerbell.
Tinkerbell and the Legend of the Never Beast. I
Fair
think there are several, and they're all fantastic. Most of them are fantastic. I really wanted to do that for this, but I did also want to. I didn't know if you guys would want to do a TV show, but I really like the show Big Mouth.
Mitchell loves Big Mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, thank
do.
you. Okay, yeah. First season is the best, but I just recommend that. Yeah.
Cool. How many seasons of that are there now? Like
3.
Three.
Okay.
Man,
Cool.
I watch those things. When they come out, I watch them in like 2 days. Give me all the potty humor.
It's great.
Oh, we will.
Tyler, what can you
I
recommend?
didn't have a lot of time to do a lot this week, but I do want to do I don't know what the word for this is. That basically I like when people actually do participate in the recommendations of other people on this show. So I got a chance to do that this week because our guest Josh, I did listen to that album he recommended. By Beach Bunny, Honeymoon, and I'm glad I did. I did a lot of drawing this week, so I had a lot of time to listen to music, and I listened to that a few times. And while not every song is my favorite, it's a good album. It's a good, easy. I don't know if he said this, but it goes down really easy. It's like.
Didn't he say he listens to it like 20 times a day?
Yeah, I'm not quite to that level.
It's very
just-
short. Yeah.
Realizing like it just goes by. Like
Yeah, it's like ice
yeah.
cream. Like
Yeah.
you before you know the tub's gone, right? Except no, I would say like it's more like gelato because
Yeah.
because it's a little more indie and
Gelato, the indie ice cream. Fuck off, posers.
But no, it's very like if you want to feel like a weird blast of nostalgia to like high school, but with something that's like really fresh that you've never heard before. This is a good one because I mean I don't know how old they actually are. I did watch their audio tree and they all look like they're fucking 16.
They do look. Yeah.
And it's all about breakups and boys because anyway, and it's great. There's a couple songs I'm like that sucked, but there's others that are just really really good, and it's a safe one I feel like I can recommend to pretty much anyone.
Yeah.
And then I know I'm sure Tyler's so done with me talking about this for all my entire life that he's known me.
So fucking. I don't even know what it is.
But with all the time I had to listen to music, I was like, I'm gonna go back and listen to old stuff that I haven't listened to in a while, and so I just fucking love The Alchemy Index by Thrice. It's an album where they did 4 discs for people who don't know, haven't heard me talk about it endlessly and just praise it and just blow more smoke up its ass. Is 4 discs, and each one is represented by one of the 4 elements of fire, water, earth, and wind. And the fire disc is very heavy, and all the lyrics are in reference to things like and a lot of burning metaphors and stuff like that. And then water is all digital and very flowy. Wind is kind of similar to water. It's a little more lighter though, and earth is a whole like EP they recorded in their living room with like acoustic guitars and pianos. And at the end, the finale of that song is fantastic because each song at the end of each disc is the same. I believe it's a sonata with its pattern, and they all have kind of share a similar theme, and then they all like lead into the same rhythm. And then at the end of Earth, it's talking about dying and moving on, and it's kind of like this person's funeral. And they actually buried a box and just started dumping dirt. Or no, sorry, they buried a box with a microphone in it, and they started dumping dirt on it. So the very end, and then his voice gets more and more muffled as more and more dirt's getting pounded on it. And it's just fascinating and really moving. And I think for the longest time, it's been in like my second place of albums. And this week it might have moved back. It might have just been, it might be my favorite album of all time. So listen to it if you get sick. It's a weird one. It's not for everyone, but I love it.
That's good shit.
Can I add one actually?
Ooh, I don't know. That's pretty
Sorry,
against
you guys.
Michelle,
We're pretty rigid here.
You gave me 2
I'm not going to be able to
seconds
invite
prepare.
anyone else on.
All I could think about was Tinkerbell.
No, please.
Don't worry, I have more Tinkerbell material to come.
No, a podcast actually I wanted to recommend.
Please be ours.
I recommend this one. That doesn't make sense. No, Dan Cummins does a podcast. He's a stand-up comedian. He does a podcast called Time Suck. And he just researches random topics and talks about them. And there was one recently on mental illness. Just bring it back to our original movie now. There was an episode on mental illness, and it like goes in depth in all of like common and also really like uncommon mental illnesses, and it was really cool. And also, there's a lot of fun serial killer episodes. So
Cool.
What's his name again?
Dan Cummins.
Dan Cummins.
And it's called Time Suck.
It's one of my favorites.
It's a good name for a podcast. I wish we had a good name for a podcast. It's so fucking bad. I wish we had a good name for a podcast.
Someone was telling me about Dr. Death yesterday.
Oh,
and I was-
that's so good.
Yeah, so I'm ready to binge it because I'm finally almost caught up on my massive queue of podcasts, and I was like, damn, what a good name for a podcast.
So good.
Like that.
I mean, but that's kind of cheating because it's like they called that guy Dr. Death. So you're
True,
doing a
okay,
podcast,
yeah.
but of course you're going to call him
Because, like,
fucking Dr. Death.
Cereal was really popular, but like, how would we not to know was it about the history of cornflakes? It just took off because it was good. Dr. Death, man, they had it in the bag the whole time.
Yeah, nailed it.
Gwen, what did you want to recommend?
Well, I'm not going to talk about a book for the first time ever.
I
know. I would like you all to congratulate me because I sat down and watched a whole 2 episodes of a show.
Oh my, I'm so excited to hear what it is.
I started Mad Men.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I didn't think I was going to be into it. I'm into it. I like I said, I'm just 2 episodes in, but I like how hard they lean into how things have changed since the 1950s. Like the Don Draper defends Peggy against his gross friend when he's being gross to her, but then in like the very next scene he's like, I won't let a woman talk to me like this, and you're like, oh, okay. Cool. And then there's another moment when the mom, January Jones, the little girl comes in with a bag over her head, and there's this pause and you're waiting for it, and she's like, that dry cleaning better not be on my floor, and just I like how hard they lean into that.
Yeah.
And then I have an anti-recommendation.
Oh.
So,
please don't be this podcast.
I'm never coming back. The Mickey Mouse stuff was too much. It's actually somewhat related to the Mickey Mouse stuff.
Oh shit!
So yes, that's what I was yelling in my kitchen by the time I was done watching it. Oh no! Not porn, just I was not watching porn in my kitchen. To be clear. So this
I have
is
no follow-up questions.
I am anti-recommending.
Yep, that's it. That's the word.
A genre of YouTube video. So it's YouTubers talking about their own fan fiction and reading it.
Oh,
I know what you're talking
Yes,
about.
Justin
I'm
sent
going
me-
to go against this Go, please continue.
Justin sent me a video of Rhett and Link of Good Mythical Morning reading, I think, 3 fan fiction stories about themselves, and
In character, like
I'm not kidding. I was in my kitchen by
guess as
myself,
themselves.
covering my ears, shouting no so that I couldn't hear about the peanut butter. So yeah, don't.
They read my story?
So yeah, don't watch that kind of YouTube video. The end. Period.
That might turn out to be a very ineffective anti-recommendation.
Talking about the first thing I'm googling.
Okay. Oh,
It's fantastic.
I want to go through the history of these Tinkerbell movies real quick. Just so you know, there's 7, and 5 of them are available on Disney Plus. Tinkerbell and the Lost Treasure, Tinkerbell and the Great Fairy Rescue, Pixie Hollow Games, like an Olympic Tinkerbell movie, Tinkerbell and the Secret Wings, Tinkerbell and
a
the
good one.
Pirate Fairy, and then Tinkerbell and the Never Beast. And I think Pixie Hollow Games, Secret Wings, and Pirate Fairy. Ooh, 2 of those 3 are not on Disney Plus. I can't go back and look now.
So you'll have to order them on Blu-ray, but make sure you don't waste your time because they might be put in the Disney Vault and then it'll be years.
You'll never get to see them again.
Yeah.
So for my recommendations, Steven Soderbergh, famous director, keeps a media diary, and everyone's impressed because he watches an insane amount of stuff, and he watches, like, of course, amazing stuff, but then he watches like a crap ton of Bravo reality TV. And so I was like, me and Soderbergh, we're kindred spirits. So I kept a media diary this week, guys. It's a lot. So I had to narrow it down, and you're welcome. I saw Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which is like an independent French movie that is getting a lot of attention, and I kind of wish it would have before award season. I think it is really incredible storytelling. As a person who really likes talkative movies, I've learned to appreciate silence, and there is a lot of just people looking at other people, and I don't think I've ever seen a relationship develop like between this. It's a painter and the figure she's supposed to be painting for her marriage, where she's like French low level aristocracy and has to marry this wealthy Italian guy, and I just think it's incredible visual storytelling. 2 actresses isolated in this beautiful house for a lot of the time, and I just think it's a beautiful movie, and it's not everyone's cup of tea, but if you can get past some subtitles and everything, it is pretty great. I watched What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show, and it's incredible. Just watch it. There's only 10 episodes. It's on Hulu, and it is hilarious.
Is that the vampire one?
Yeah, and I've never seen the Taika Waititi movie.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
I was gonna ask you if it was as good as the movie. 'Cause
So
I love the movie.
it's only on like Canopy and some other weird streamer right now.
It's a little different than the movie, but I think that the differences are good. The differences benefit the TV show. And Matt Berry's in it, who is fucking great.
And then I will just do my last one. It's called Devs. Now, Devs is interesting. It's only on Hulu, but it's technically streaming on FX on Hulu. So it's not going to be on linear FX, which, by the way, like, if you're going hit for hit, FX and HBO are probably the 2 best television networks on right now making shows. So this is Nick Offerman, and then, to me, a bunch of unknowns. Allison Pill's in it. Otherwise, I don't know the characters. And they're working at this tech firm, and there's a death, and there is hints at like alternate universes and time travel, but it is kept so tight and so interesting. I haven't been riveted by this in a long time, and the selling point for me is that it was made by Alex Garland, who did Ex Machina and Annihilation, which
and
are
28
just
days later, like that's
just weird but incredible. And so I think Devs is going to be one a lot of people are going to enjoy, and I think it is. The first 2 episodes dropped this week. I think there's only 8. And I haven't been that riveted in quite a while. So, of all the many things I was able to consume that week, those are a few. One more. There's an article about an Argentinian bank robbery that is so much better than Ocean's 11, and it's just a long form article. If you just look up Argentinian bank robbery, you'll find it. And
it's the only one.
How these turn out and what these guys are now trying to do to profit off of it is fascinating, and I hope. There's been a really bad Argentinian B movie made about it. I hope another one gets made, with money, but by Argentinians, respect the people. But I read a lot of long-form journalism because I'm a journalism nerd. So I'm going to try and share a few more of those because I think sometimes if it's like a 10-page magazine article, it's so much, you can consume it really quickly, but it is just a different type of storytelling than anything else. Justin, have you had time to look through your notes?
I do, yeah.
This is our grace that is allowing you to share these recommendations with us.
Got it. First thing that I want to recommend, this is like my main recommendation for this week. I just today discovered a band, a one-man band called Nether Friends. The guy so it's made up of a guy named Sean Rosenblatt, or Blatt, I don't know how to say his last name. somebody shared a song of his on Reddit, and I checked it out, and I can't remember. Oh, it was the song that was shared was "Eat a Piece of Fruit, You Fucking Piece of Shit" or something like that. Or I think that was the name of the song.
His most popular song is "Don't Be a Fuckboy."
Yeah. Yep.
DMT and Whiskey is another one.
Yeah. So I started listening to just some of his stuff earlier today, and it's more. So he put out 50 albums last year, and they're all like all of the albums kind of have like from what I can tell, they're all themed. So like we can just read a few of these album names. Like one of them is just called "Sex," and then all of the tracks on that are sex related tracks. And then there's like "Low Key," and all of the tracks on there are like "Low Key, I'm thinking this," or "Low Key, you're a piece of shit," or like stuff like that. There's a bunch of marijuana related album names. Another one, "Insecure as Fuck," "Stoned as Fuck." But yeah, I started listening to his stuff.
Can I read my favorite one that I've seen?
Yes, please.
It's a Kids Bop parody that's Kids Trap.
Multiple volumes of that one. There's a whole bunch of those.
He
Kids
turned
Trap
Tumblr
12,
into
Kids Trap
music.
13.
That's a like resounding positive review to me at this point. Yeah, that sounds amazing.
It's kind of interesting because when I was just doing kind of like shuffle play on Spotify, and I heard some of his albums that he released like 7 years ago or so, and he's got a pretty wide range as far as genres that he does. Like right now, the stuff that he's putting out is I would say it's more like hip hop and rap. But some of his earlier stuff is kind of what you like think of when you think just indie music.
Okay.
But it's what I heard. Like I liked everything that I heard. It's not something you're gonna listen to, like sit down and listen to the lyrics and be like you're not listening to lyrics really. It's a lot of it is background music, but it's enjoyable. And the fact that he put out 50 albums last year is just really impressive to me. Even if they're all only like 8 tracks, 10 tracks, 2 minute long songs. But yeah, so I'm gonna start working through his discography. I'll talk about it in a year or so when I get through everything.
Yeah, do you have like a recommendation as far as like where to jump in, or like is that song on just anywhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
Eat a piece of fruit, or eat a fucking piece. I don't know. Just Google "piece of fruit, you piece of shit" or something, and you'll find it.
I feel so
Safe search
attacked.
off.
Yeah. That's a good one actually. Other than that,
Is that a song?
That is, yeah. That's a song that was shared. That's
I
how
thought
I
you were
jumped into
saying
this.
turn the safe search off.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Yeah.
you were.
Maybe
Oh.
that is. I don't know. Probably is.
I was saying when you search "eat a
Right,
fucking piece of fruit, you piece of shit," make sure your safe search is off.
The other thing I just wanted to mention briefly, I've started working on the second season of Altered Carbon, and I think I'm the 3rd episode into it, and I am enjoying Anthony Mackie more than the guy from the first season. I can't remember his name. Anthony Mackie's pretty good for this show, I think. But the show itself so far is just not really hitting it. I don't know exactly what it is. I enjoyed some of the themes that were presented in the first season so much, and found like the ideas that were present really interesting to think about. But this one, it doesn't feel like there's really much new that's going on as far as like the sci-fi aspects to it, or like a lot of the interesting ideas were explored in the first season as far as like what it means to be human separate from your body, like your mind. A big part of the show is that something called a stack is basically like your entire personality or who you are is downloaded into like a computer chip, and then you essentially gain immortality as long as that gets put into a new sleeve, which is a body. So you can pass your stack from body to body and essentially live forever as long as your stack doesn't get destroyed. So the first season kind of explored some of the ideas around that. This season, it just kind of feels like kind of a standard love story, and it just doesn't feel like the universe, the ideas there are really being explored so far. But again, I'm only a couple episodes in, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear your further thoughts on
Yeah,
that. 'Cause,
yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever get around to that, but we'll see.
See. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for your recommendations. Thanks for listening to the Rewatchers on the pod. cast?
Let's call ourselves Dr. Death 2. I've decided.
Dr. Death again.
Death 2 from now on. Yeah.
All right. This has been Mitchell Marshall with
Gwen Hammer.
Tyler McKinley.
Michelle Oberg.
Tyler Harris.
Justin Hammer.
Thanks, guys. Bye.